It's been a minute. Hi, my name is Gwen. The last time I was on this channel or posting anything was back in 2020, I think October. Yeah, I don't think I posted anything after October 2020. And it's been a while. Hi, how are you? I hope you're doing well. So I wanted to do a reintroduction to myself, to my channel, what's going on, where have I been, and what I have recently read. Also, my AC is running, and you will more than likely hear it, but I got a new microphone, so I think this is going to work out just great. So, anyways, let's rattle off a little bit of where I've been. So 2020 happened. I think all of us knew where we were during that time, and I was honestly having the best time of my life. I can't even say it was the worst. I loved it because I was free to kind of pursue whatever interests I wanted. And at the time, a multitude of things came up. And I decided I wanted to do BookTube. And I loved it. I was having a lot of fun with it. I was finally making friends in the community. I was finding people who had similar tastes as me in books, and I was having such a great time. And then I got called back to my job. And it went downhill after that, unfortunately, for me. I know a lot of people that happens when they've been doing stuff online and then all of a sudden they get a new job. Basically what happened is I got my job back and then I got real sad. And I wasn't motivated to read anymore. And I was feeling very small in the place that I was in. I felt really reduced again to a self that I didn't want to be anymore. So over the years, moved a couple times. I'm clearly in a new space, and I've done a lot of growing in the last 5 years. And my reintroduction is saying that I'm hoping to be here a little bit more permanently again, and that I hope I can stick around much longer and have a little niche on BookTube, talking about my favorite types of books, what I'm reading, and having community again. Because honestly, you guys, it's so real. I rewatched my video of introducing myself to the BookTube community and saying what my interests were, how long I had been reading, all this stuff. And I'm going to put that hashtag down below to this just because back again type of deal. Let's see, have any of these changed? When I rewatched this video, I was like, oh, nothing has actually changed from when I originally was doing this. So I'm going to do this kind of rapid fire. I started this channel originally to feel a sense of community about reading books and what my interests in books were. That's still the same thing. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to BookTube? I think it's just like my reviews and what I view as really interesting books and 5-star reads versus ones that I don't think you should give a chance to. And also personality. I think my personality is also a fun and unique thing. What are you most excited for about this new channel? Well, it's not new, but we're restarting. And I'm just excited to make friends. I'm going to be real honest. All I want is some friends who also read frequently. I hope you're out there and we can talk. Why do I love reading? It's escapism. Easy. Oh, what book or series got you into reading? This one I'm still pretty adamant with for my original one, which is Narnia. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? Still the same thing as in my original video. Do you want to be friends? What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? For me, it's actually editing. Actually editing the videos, and then commenting. I am such a recluse. I'm such just like, I'll watch the video and then keep it moving. I rarely, if ever, comment on videos, and I need to change that. When did you start reading? Whenever my parents started reading to me is when I started reading. Where do you read? Mostly anywhere that's comfy. And if it's an audiobook, then I'm either working on something at my desk and listening, or I'm at work and doing work while listening. What kind of books do you like to read? Oh, well, same thing. Adult high fantasy books are my number one, but I am trying to branch out into more genres at this point because I have found that when I'm in a book slump, it's usually because I'm sad. Basically, when I hit a book slump, I am usually sad and usually overly anxious about something that's actually happening in my life, and so I hit a huge pause on reading, and I'm trying to get over that hurdle a little bit. It does mean probably during that time period I will be reading slower, but it doesn't mean like I can't read. And I have found that if I read singular novels, fiction books that are under 400 pages, usually that kicks the like stagnant, you've been reading too many books that are over 500 pages long, and also cuts through the emotional stuff that I'm dealing with. it just makes it easier. So I'm branching out. I'm trying to do sci-fi, and I'm branching out to horror. I'm also wanting to read just general fiction. Oh, that's the last question technically, but it says on here sometimes people answer the question, what does your book collection look like? As you guys can see, I still have the same bookshelf, but the books on it have changed. Some have not. This whole shelf has not changed at all. Actually, it has, because I've bought some more books from this series. That's the way it's changed. But other than that, there's a lot of new books, and there's some that are forever gone because I got rid of them. So at the end of this video, I also wanted to just put in kind of a mini review, shall we say, of the last few books I've read. 3 of them are in a trilogy, and 1 is a single. So let's go with the trilogy I just finished. The trilogy is The Empire of the Wolf by Richard Swan. For some odd reason I got them all in hardbacks. Don't judge. But I originally found this trilogy randomly on one of my birthdays a few years ago, but it was the second book, but I loved the cover, so I was like, oh, I have to go get the first one. And again, I purchased it in hardback, so of course, all of this has to be in hardback. My review of the first book, I gave it a 3.75 stars. It was good. Oh my god, this was so hard. So in this book, we are following Helena, and she is the protege of the Justice Von Vault. And I would label this book as kind of a mystery. I feel like this is the prequel book to the rest of the trilogy, to the rest of the 2 books, because it feels so insular. You don't really move much in the scope of the world, and you only get a handful of characters that you really get to know. It's all through Helena's point of view. Her point of view, I get really frustrated with so much, but I really enjoyed the world and what was being created. The main magical system is actually highly regulated, and only justices can use it, and then the rest of the knowledge of said magic is stowed away in the main capital. So you're only getting to see magic as Von Vault does it, not Helena. The book summary also mentions that there are strings being pulled to fell the empire that they serve. So there is a lot of political intrigue. I gave it the rating I did because it felt too small for my taste, and I didn't like that we only have one point of view. So with that being said, why did I continue on with the trilogy? Because it was at a 3-star rating, close to 4, so I said, you know what, I have the second book, I don't need to buy it, so we'll just try it out. The second book is The Tyranny of Faith. This is where I could give it 4 stars. I loved how much more we got to see of the world. We got to meet many more characters. We also got to meet a slew of intrigue. The other thing that I loved about this was the amount of politics. The absurdity of what people were getting away with, just the domino effect of how many things so quickly fell apart once our group came to the Capitol was nuts. And it was a really great time. I was very captivated, and I loved where it ended. And so I was like, yeah, we're definitely gonna pick up the third book, which is The Trials of Empire. This one I gave, I think it was 4.25. I couldn't give it a 4.5 because I was not satisfied with the ending, which at this point, I will say all 3 books is still one person. It is still Helena, and I still do not like her. The other characters I also never really fully fell in love with, but I found them a lot more intriguing and a lot more realistic to the world that they live in. Again, this is a world that's heavily grimdark, heavily political, and we only get a few scenes of battle, and most of the time the battle is through a person's eyes who isn't used to being in a battle and is very overwhelmed. Though there's still some interesting things that happen in these battles, Helena is not the best person to get the narrative from, I think. But overall, I was captivated by the story. I really wanted to know what was going to happen. And that part of the story did not disappoint, especially in these last two books. Again, the first one feels more like a prequel, where these other two felt more like these are the books about the story that I wanted. In this one, too, the politics are still confusing in some ways. How it is left is why I couldn't give it a 4.5. I really wish in this trilogy the author had a secondary point of view from either the antagonistic side or just another POV from the capital the entire time the series was going on. And then after all is said and done, there's an epilogue at the end of this book, and it makes me upset. So this is why I got so annoyed with Helena. She is 19 to 20 years old. She's had a difficult life, specifically childhood, and then her end of her teenage years, this justice is like, hey, I think you have the potential to be a justice, so I'm gonna take you off the street. But then there are just some instances that she says something and I go, why are you being antagonistic in this moment about this? Why are we bringing this up? And the problem with it being in first person is that she talks to you as an older person, and that takes out all of the edge that the story had to say whether or not Helena makes it to the end of this story. We definitely know she does because she's writing this story. At the end of every single book, she says, well, this is enough for now. This is enough for now. And in the final book, in the epilogue, she's like, but some secrets are going to be only kept with me. And I was just sat there reading that being so fucking offended. I was so offended. I was so offended because I was like, this was supposed to be a story from the perspective of a secondary character on Von Vault about his life. And now you're saying no one gets to know where he's been. It just angers me and frustrates me that it's supposed to be a story about Von Vault, and we never got it from his perspective. Any of the things he went through. We only got it perceived by a secondary person. And then we don't get to have an ending for the character that I would argue I care a lot more about than the perspective we've been forced to have this entire trilogy. And that just drove me. It just drove me up a wall at the end of that. And I was like, I can't give you higher than a 4.25. I may have given this a 4. I should check to make sure. I forget what I gave this one. I gave it a 4.5. I've been lying this entire time. I gave it a 4.5. Whoops. Okay. I will say, giving it a 4.5, I think tells me enough of how I felt about the story overall, which I think was very well written, very good. I think the majority of people would enjoy this as long as you like adult high fantasy and you like Grimm and you like politicking. But if you don't like first-person perspective in your fantasy books, would not pick this up. And I guess there is some gory details, but I wouldn't say it's horror. It's just grim, so to speak. So overall, my rating for the trilogy is 4 stars for the average. I did, unbeknownst to myself, pick up his next series, which is also going to be a trilogy, because it's Grave something. It's called The Grave Empire. It's on my shelf down there. I don't know if you, it's right here. Hopefully that's on the book. I don't know. Unbeknownst to me, I did not realize it's set in the same world, and I'm pretty sure it's a prequel trilogy. So I'm excited to read about it because I think we're going to get way more of the magic that I am so intrigued by because it's so gnarly. It's just so disgusting and fun and gruesome. And in this book, a lot of the time when they talked about the magic, it's banned for a reason, and I think we're finally going to see the reason why in this trilogy. The second book is actually going to be published pretty soon, so we'll see when I get around to reading that. But overall, great world. Didn't like the forced perspective of one person. Okay, so from there, I was like, I need a little bit of a break, and then I ordered a book because I wanted the physical copy, and I'm glad I got the physical copy because I fell in love with this book, and that is Between Two Fires. This is by Christopher Buehlman. I hope I'm saying your last name right. This is not a new book. Was either published in 2012 or 2014, can't remember. And it is described as a historical fantasy horror novel. And the reason I came across this book was I was trying to find any books to start my horror reading adventure in. And I had gotten a couple, and I was like, I know this one, if I can get my hands on it, I'm pretty sure this is like the type of horror I want to read. Because it said, and people reviewed, that devils and angels are real. It's set in France in 1348 during the Black Plague, and you start around Normandy, France. You go from there following a knight and a little girl on an adventure. Well, I guess I should say former knight. On an adventure that the little girl bestows on this knight. I give it 5 stars. First of all, let's just start there. I gave it 5 stars. This book is phenomenal. The writing is phenomenal. The description of everything just makes you feel like you are there in a way that it's like grody and grim and sad. And I loved that. I loved it so much. And I think I could enjoy this a lot more easily in general, because I don't like urban fantasies a lot. I don't like low fantasy in general. I don't like magic systems in our world. So this version, though, is centuries ago that it still seems foreign to a modern mindset. And so I found that this was such a joy to read because I could just imagine it was fantasy in general. Even though, obviously, the towns and the cities are all real. Being French and an Englishman and an Italian, yeah, like all of that is real, but at the same time, it's easier to part away those realities and have a very good time. My only thing that I would give a warning to is that in the first chapter, there is an attempt at grape. Do I have to really censor myself now on the internet this severely? Anyways, there's an attempt at that, and I'm glad I saw that in the red flag section on Storygraph before I started reading this book. It's never that much in detail at all. Like, it is horror, and there are some instances where people say words of that nature about SA, or yeah, just some dark stuff, but it never gets more detailed than the first chapter. So, because I was getting apprehensive at the first chapter. I was like, God, I'm so glad I heard about this, but man, it's in the first chapter. But I think the first chapter is really setting the tone of the book. And so the rest of the book, it's mostly monsters and devils and church stuff. So after all of that to say, this is what I want from a single book, which is you have a full story of characters that go through something, and then at the end, you tie off every little ribbon, and you can set this book down and say, that's a full story. I could recommend it to anybody. That's how this got 5 stars as well. I also really enjoyed the majority of the characters that we got the most time with, and I loved the dad and daughter vibes that this book gave. It's kind of one of my favorite duos. This was great. This was great for me. So finally, what I would like to finish this video off with is what I'm going to be reading. I'm jumping to The Wolf of Oren-Yaro by K.S. I don't know if it's Villoso or Villoso. We'll figure it out. But I'm going to start finally reading this book. It's been a while, and I just wanted to pick up a book that has been on my TBR for a very, very long time. It's been on my TBR since the last time I was on BookTube. It doesn't have many reviews, and I wanted to see what this is all about. I remember picking it up, and the first line being, they called me the bitch queen, and I was like, oh, I'm in. However, I'm a little bit nervous because I saw on Storygraph they have this new thing where it can recommend if this book is for you. And at the end of my recommendation, it said something along the lines of, you don't normally love romance heavy plot books, and apparently this one does have it. And also it's in first person again. At least that's what it said. Oh, yeah, no, it's in first person. Great. Cool. Let this character be more enjoyable than Helena, and I will have a good time. So that's going to be the next one. we'll see if I enjoy it. If not, then I will DNF the trilogy. You can find me over at Blue Sky, and I still have my Instagram account, though I never post there, but I think I'll still have it listed just in case you want to follow me over there. Oh, and I also have my story graph listed, so if you want to follow or just see what I've been reading lately, because I did not talk about all the other books I read this year, and let me tell you, I've had quite a good reading year, and I think it's because all of the good books were on my TBR for so long that, like, because now I'm going through them, I'm hitting all these 5 stars. I'm really worried about next year when I finally have to get through all of this and be like, okay, now I have to go find books for myself again. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'm glad to be back. I don't know what I'll post next. I'm kind of intrigued to do reading vlogs, though I don't have many spaces in my apartment where I get enough light, so it might be different angles of this bedroom. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.